Hello everybody, it's me, Sports Talk Guy, and in this episode I'll be giving my full predictions on the NFL award ceremony, basically. Now there's a lot of awards that get handed out every year, and there's some that NFL.com does, which I really don't care about, so I'm not going to talk about them, but I'll list the awards that I'm not going to talk about. First off, NFL Fantasy Player of the Year, I'm not going to do that. Salute to Service Player of the Year, I'm not going to do that. Play of the Year, I'm not going to do that. Greatness on the Road, not going to do that. The FedEx Air and Ground Players, not going to do it. The High School Coach of the Year, not going to do it. And the Pepsi Rookie of the Year. This is different than the other Rookie of the Years. This is the one that gets voted on by the fans on NFL.com. So I'm not going to talk about that. And the Walter Payton NFL Man of the Year, which is like the Good Sportsmanship Award. But I'm not here to talk about those. I'm here to talk about the awards that people really care about. And the awards I'll be talking about today are NFL Comeback Player, NFL Defensive Rookie of the Year, NFL Offensive Rookie of the Year, NFL Defensive Player of the Year, NFL Offensive Player of the Year, Coach of the Year, and the NFL MVP. Each category I have 4 nominees for, except for MVP I have 6. All those men can deserve to win it, and I wouldn't be mad if any of those men that I nominate to win it are. I'll also give on who I think should win these awards, and who I think will win the award, and also the nominees. So we'll start off, I guess, from least important to most important. So let's start off with NFL Comeback Player of the Year. First nominee, LeSean McCoy, Philadelphia Eagles. LeSean McCoy in 2013 had a bit of a 2012. These awards are for 2013. In 2012, had a bit of a slump. The team didn't do good. 4-12. He got a concussion down the end of the stretch. He missed like the last 4 or 5 games. Didn't do much. 2013, he comes out, leads the NFL in rushing. How about that? Anyways, my next one is Darrell Revis, Tampa Bay Buccaneers cornerback. Darrell Revis in 2012 basically missed the entire season with a torn ACL. I think he only played about the first 3 games, didn't do much. At that point in time, he was regarded as the best cornerback in the NFL. Now, I think he's back. I think, personally, he's only number 2, and I'll talk about my number 1 later. I think you all know who my number 1 is. Most people's number 1. But Revis, right now, he came back. He only had 2 interceptions this year, but he made plays like he always does. And he came back, and he proved why he can play defense still. And I think next year will probably be even better, especially with the new coach and Lovie Smith. But we're not here to talk about that. My next one is Phillip Rivers, San Diego Chargers quarterback. After basically a down 2012 and 2011, after being regarded as highly regarded as a top 5 quarterback, considered one of the elites, he didn't have a good previous 2 years. This year, he came back on top and certainly led his team back into the playoffs. They didn't win the division. They were the 6th seed of the playoffs, but hey, a wild card spot's a place to start if you want to get back into the playoff talk. And I think personally that team can be good, but we're not going to talk about overall and why I think they'll be good next year or not. We're here to talk about Phillip Rivers. After having so many down years, he finally comes back. I think he did really well. He lost his top receiver, Denario Alexander, and then a man who we'll talk about later really stepped up. He's a rookie. We'll talk about him later. He really stepped up, came in, helped Phillip Rivers along with the rest of that offense. That they became a really lethal offense in the NFL. And my final nominee for Comeback Player of the Year is Troy Polamalu, Pittsburgh Steelers safety. Troy Polamalu had a very injury-prone previous 2 years, basically. He played on and off a lot. Even last year, he played more than he did in 2011 and 2012. But his numbers weren't that good. This year he came back on top. He was making he made a lot of tackles, a lot of plays, had a lot of everything. He came back. He impressed me. He was definitely key to that success in the second half of the Steelers season. After the Steelers went 0-4, they ended up going 8-8. Granted, a lot of players on that offense stepped up too. But Troy Polamalu is the leader of the Steelers, and he will be until he retires. Now, my pick for Comeback Player of the Year is, of course, Philadelphia Eagles running back LeSean McCoy. In my opinion, there's no one out there who deserves it more. This guy came back, he did what he had to do, and he helped bring that team from a 4-12 season to a 10-6 season and take him to the playoffs. If McCoy is not healthy or doesn't play, the Eagles don't make the playoffs. It's as simple as that. He was the key player of that offense. Losing him in the future or even before would have been or will be a huge loss. On to my defensive rookie of the years. So the nominees are Kiko Alonso, Buffalo Bills linebacker. Tyrann Mathieu. Oh wait, I forgot to talk. Sorry, I forgot to talk about each of my nominees first. Well, you know the next one, Tyrann Mathieu, but hang on. Kiko Alonso. Kiko Alonso certainly busted out onto the scene as a great linebacker for the Buffalo Bills. He did great. He got a lot of sacks, and he's definitely the kind of player that the Bills need to help build around for defense. And now the Bills, I think, have a strong enough defense to where they could focus on offense. He definitely made a lot of plays, had a lot of sacks, had a lot of everything, as per usual. And he definitely proved that he can be a top linebacker in the NFL. Now, Tyrann Mathieu, everybody's favorite Arizona Cardinals safety. Tyrann Mathieu fell very late in the draft, later than he would have been if he would have played college the year before. In 2012, Tyrann Mathieu did not play college football because he got suspended the year for marijuana charges. So that team suspended him and he didn't play, but he went out for the draft anyways at the very beginning of 2013. Got drafted middle of the third round. Or no, it would have been early with the way the Cardinals were that previous year. Got drafted in the middle of the third round, and boom, Tyrann Mathieu makes problems in the secondary. Now, sadly, it looks like we won't be seeing Tyrann Mathieu next year as he tore his ACL, which normally takes a whole year to recover. Maybe he comes back halfway through the year when it happened. We'll see. But Tyrann Mathieu is a great player. The Honey Badger is his nickname. He takes what he wants. That's his motto. Certainly did take what he wanted. Had a decent amount of picks, along with former teammate of his, Patrick Peterson. And they definitely make a good tandem. Mathieu did play corner in college. He transferred to safety when he came to the NFL. He still plays slot corner on certain plays in that Arizona Cardinals defense, but I like him. I liked him even in college, and I'm happy to see him do good again in the NFL. Anyways, now we're on to Shelton Richardson, defensive lineman for the New York Jets. This man certainly caused problems for offensive lines. He definitely impressed me. No one, I think, really expected Shelton Richardson to be even in the talks for this vote, considering he was just a simple defensive lineman, and he definitely made a lot of plays, which is good for that Jets team, which the Jets normally are always strong on defense. I guess it doesn't really matter. Their problem is their offense. I mean, they don't really have an established running game. Their quarterbacks have been nothing better than below average, to say the least. Their top wide receiver has been injured on and off the last 2 or 3 years. So they're going to have to focus on offense. They still managed to go 8-8, but with very inconsistent play on the offensive side of the ball. The defense always had it pretty locked down, and a lot of help there with Shelton Richardson. And the final nominee for Defensive Rookie of the Year is Lotulelei. He was a defensive tackle for the Carolina Panthers. The Panthers this year, after having a bad previous lot of years, I guess, they finally won the division going, 11-5 or 12-4? It was one of those two. Went into the playoffs, lost immediately though, but I don't blame it on Lotulelei or that defense. That defense stepped up this year. They got rid of even John Beason, which surprised me when they traded him to the Giants after that 1-4 start that the Panthers had. I was like, oh, you're crazy. I guess they're focusing on getting rid of the guys and starting to rebuild now again. And I thought they were in turmoil, but a lot of guys stepped up, and he was certainly one of the guys. He's a really athletic defensive tackle. Not many D tackles are as athletic as this guy comes. And now for my winner, Kiko Alonso. I'd say Kiko Alonso wins it. He certainly made definitely the most name for himself, made the most plays, and becoming a tough young linebacker is, I shouldn't say tough young. A young linebacker is tough to establish in, especially early coming into the NFL. And that's why I like linebackers and I like Kiko Alonso to win this award. On to Offensive Rookie of the Year. Here are the nominees. First, Eddie Lacy, Green Bay Packers running back. I say right here, if it wasn't for Eddie Lacy, the Packers wouldn't have won that division, made the playoffs. The Packers won 8-7-1, won their division, but they mostly won 8-7-1 because Aaron Rodgers, their quarterback, got injured. And at that point, they were in quarterback turmoil, starting second, third string, signing guys like Matt Flynn. They were all over the place. Eddie Lacy stepped it up and broke, I think he had 1,100 yards, and he had a lot of touchdowns. This is a true power back that definitely impressed me. He was a Trent Richardson-like player, only better because we all know Trent Richardson's amounted to nothing anymore. He's probably one of the biggest draft busts in NFL history, in my opinion. But we're not going to talk about Trent Richardson today. We're here to talk about former Alabama running back, both of them, Eddie Lacy. Lacy definitely impressed me. I didn't think a running back of his size would do much, but he definitely impressed me a lot. I thought going into that draft there was a lot of running backs better than Lacy. Certainly made me a believer. Anyways, on to Keenan Allen, one of the Mr. Irrelevance of the draft. Week 1 or even week 2, if you would have asked me who the hell Keenan Allen was, I would have told you I probably don't know. This kid, as soon as San Diego Chargers wide receiver Denario Alexander goes down, as we were talking about before, Keenan Allen hugely steps up. Definitely part of the reason why the Chargers and Phillip Rivers look good this year, and the Chargers went on to go to the playoffs as one of the wild card spots. Impressed me very much. This kid made a lot of great catches. Certainly impressed me. Keenan Allen will be a top receiver in the NFL in years to come. Next up, Gio Bernard, Cincinnati Bengals running back. While Gio Bernard at the beginning of the season, I liked him a lot. Didn't think that I thought he should have started. He didn't start towards the beginning of the season. It was BenJarvus Green-Ellis, who also his teammate played. Two certainly different runners, but I think Gio Bernard is on this list for a second half of part of the season, and I also think that for the Bengals' future, he's definitely the guy to go to, and I think BenJarvus Green-Ellis will now be his backup. And they're a good change of pace for each other. They work well. It's going to be a good 1-2. And Gio Bernard is definitely going to help that team's offense excel because, granted, they have A.J. Green, who, in my opinion, is the second best receiver in the NFL, but you have Andy Dalton, who's really inconsistent. And having an established run game can definitely bring some consistency back to a quarterback. And finally, Zach Stacy. I was almost going to say something really wrong here. Zach Stacy, St. Louis Rams running back. Stacy was a player who was certainly expected to bust out of the draft. A lot of people I knew said Stacy won't become nothing. He's a bad runner, not that good, had bad ball control. He's not slow. He's not elusive. He is slow. He is elusive, or isn't elusive. And he definitely shut a lot of people up. He put up big numbers in the second half of the season. Granted, the Rams went nowhere, and not his fault. They didn't have a quarterback. Sam Bradford got injured, so they were in turmoil there. But hey, Stacy impressed me, and they certainly impressed a lot of people for the future. And now that they have their new long-term established running back since Steven Jackson. And my winner for Offensive Rookie of the Year award goes to Eddie Lacy of the Green Bay Packers. I think Lacy deserves this award the most because definitely without him, that team doesn't make the playoffs. The rest you could argue, well, Bernard, either way, the Bengals definitely would have won that division. And Keenan Allen is the only one you could really argue that could win this award too. He definitely helped the Chargers get to the playoffs. But then Lacy helped his team win the division. So, that's why. Now we're on to the big boy awards. Starting with Defensive Player of the Year. This goes to who definitely deserves the right to be named Best Defensive Player. These four guys impressed me so much, and I love watching these guys, and I can't wait to see them again next year, and even in the Pro Bowl. And one of these guys are still playing, at least in the upcoming week, or tomorrow, I guess, because tomorrow's the Super Bowl by the time this recording goes up. So, anyways, my nominees are for Defensive Player of the Year: Richard Sherman, cornerback, or Seattle Seahawks cornerback. Richard Sherman this year led the NFL with 8 interceptions. 8. He also had 8 last year, and since coming into the league, he's held the most interceptions at 20 overall. This man does it all. Richard Sherman is a cornerback who is not afraid to tackle people. A lot of corners at this level, or not at this level, but at this day and age, tend to not like to tackle anymore, tend to avoid the play. Now, he loves running up. He can stop the run, stop the pass. This man definitely is deserving. Next, last year's winner of the Defensive Player of the Year award, J.J. Watt, also known as J.J. Swat, Houston Texans defensive end, specifically left end. J.J. Watt may go down as the most athletic end in NFL history. Probably could play linebacker in some schemes, but you're not going to use him as linebacker. You're going to use him as the defensive end. J.J. Watt definitely, even going into starting last year when he did win his first Defensive Player of the Year award last year, definitely shows that this guy knows what he's doing. And he gets a lot of sacks and he knocks the ball down, something that's not seen very much. His nickname, J.J. Swat, he's good at swatting balls down when a quarterback throws to the right side of the field, where he would be on the left side, quarterback facing the right side. He's so big, he's so long, so fast, so agile, he just goes up and swats it down. That even last year during the playoffs, they had Tom Brady practicing. They got really long sticks with really huge gloves and, I guess, hand-like things on them for practice. That's how they went up against J.J. Watt. Next is last year's Defensive Rookie of the Year, and now going for Defensive Player of the Year, Luke Eakly. Carolina Panthers linebacker. Luke Kuechly was not supposed to be this good. It was never expected to be this good. He got told, you're too short, you're not big enough, you're never going to get these guys, blah, 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 blah. Man, did Luke Kuechly smack a lot of people in the last 2 years. And if he wins Defensive Player of the Year, he'll be the second guy to do that in NFL history, next to one of the greatest defensive players ever in Lawrence Taylor, former linebacker for the New York Giants. And Jesus, that's a great company to be a part of. It's crazy, but let's think. Luke Kuechly had, and against the Saints, he had 24 tackles and an interception in that game. 24 tackles in a game. There's corners anymore that'll get 24 tackles in a season. This guy gets that in a game. He's all over the field. He's so fast. He's so smart. He's already a leader of the team. He already got a captainship. Man, he impressed me a lot. Certainly made a lot of haters shut up. And that's why I like Luke Kuechly. And finally, who in my opinion is the fastest cornerback in the NFL, Patrick Peterson, Arizona Cardinals cornerback. This guy is another one of those guys that just does it all. He's so fast. He's so athletic. The athleticism on Patrick Peterson is insane. He also does kick and punt returns for the Cardinals. His speed is what makes me like him a lot. If he's the kind of guy that if there's a speedy receiver, you want to put him on, because he's a little bit on the shorter side, but he can jump pretty high, but he's fast. You want him always on those fast receivers because they're never going to see the ball. Because, in my opinion, I think, well, not even in my opinion, right now I think where Patrick Peterson ranks, I think he's in the top 10 for speed, and he's probably number 1 for cornerbacks. So, there you go. And now, my prediction to win Defensive Player of the Year. Oh, also, before I guess I go into this, they do all the voting before the playoffs, so none of the playoffs help. But some of these stats are, in my opinion, are based around the playoffs, and that's why I think sometimes the awards should be handed out after the playoffs. But I see why they're not. Anyways, my winner for Defensive Player of the Year is Mr. Richard Sherman, Seattle Seahawks cornerback. Nobody expected Richard Sherman to be as good as he was. He was a 5th-round pick out of Stanford. And granted, Stanford's a great football school. It's also a smart school. Nobody expected, not even the Seahawks when they drafted him. I guess they saw a gem and they took him, Richard Sherman, to be this good. Richard Sherman just gets picks. He jumps routes. He reads the quarterback. He reads the receivers. He is truly he truly defines the word or the phrase "shut down cornerback." He really does shut players down. And interestingly enough, I saw a thing on ESPN the other day. They showed his matchups against 8 different considered elite receivers, and they're everyone from Larry Fitzgerald to Calvin Johnson to Brandon Marshall. 8 of these guys, and only one of them beat him ever truly once. I mean, there's people that argue, oh, T.Y. Hilton beat him earlier in the year, which he did, but we're talking about elite receivers and what he does, because in the Super Bowl he's going up against an elite receiver in Demaryius Thomas. And I don't think they've ever faced off before. They might have faced off once. But anyways, he's shut down 7 of those guys. And when I mean shut down, he really shut them down to virtually no yards and only giving up 2 touchdowns. And the only man that truly beat him was Brandon Marshall, except Brandon Marshall had about 150 yards and no touchdowns. And that's not that bad, giving only 150 yards up to one guy like him. So that's why he wins, and that's just based off history. But even this season, Richard Sherman definitely got the job done, and that's even as a unit, that Seattle Seahawks defensive backcourt insanely good. That's why they got the nickname Legion of Boom. Anyways, on to Offensive Player of the Year. This category always gets mixed in with MVP a lot, but I don't like to mix these two categories together, where Offensive Player of the Year also wins the MVP. But a lot of that, you're going to notice all these guys that are often, 4 of these guys, since there's 6 guys in my nominations for NFL MVP, all 4 of these guys for Offensive Player of the Year are also nominated for MVP. So, anyways, listen good. So here we go. Offensive Player of the Year. First up, Jamaal Charles, Kansas City Chiefs running back. Jamaal Charles is one of those great running backs that are considered all-purpose. He does everything from run to catch. He's great. He's speed. He's good left or east-west runner. He juke you out. His speed is great. Nothing else more to say about Jamaal Charles. Next, back again for another nomination. Shawn Mccoy, Philadelphia Eagles running back. We already talked about McCoy, so I'm really not going to talk about him again. I guess I talked about why he should win Comeback Player of the Year, so I guess I'll just talk about why he should win Offensive Player of the Year. Simply enough, he led the NFL in rushing. What was it, 1,700, 800? That's pretty good. I mean, last year, Adrian Peterson was only 9 away from the record, and that's why Adrian Peterson deserved NFL MVP last year. So that's why. Anyways, next, for Offensive Player of the Year, the man himself, Peyton Manning. Peyton Manning is a great offensive player. Not even a great offensive player. He's a great quarterback. Easily, if he wins the Super Bowl, it'll only be his second. But in my opinion, Peyton Manning, if he wins the Super Bowl, goes down as the best quarterback in NFL history. And this year, he broke the NFL passing record that was previously held by Tom Brady, who had 50. And Peyton Manning, I think this year, got 54. Pretty insane amount of touchdowns. On top of the fact he also broke the single-season passing record, which a lot of people didn't even know about. He broke that, who was previously held by the next man on the list, Drew Brees, St. Louis. God, St. Louis. I'm so sorry for all you New Orleans Saints fans. Drew Brees, New Orleans Saints quarterback. Former record holder of the single-season passing record. Now just recently broken by Peyton Manning. But again, Drew Brees, what I like about Drew Brees is that he defies odds. A man who's pretty short, never said he could be a starter in the NFL, a starting quarterback in the NFL, goes out and what does he do? He's won a Super Bowl already. I'm pretty sure he's won at least one MVP. And if it wasn't for him, that team's nowhere. He made a great, and since Jimmy Graham came on the team, he's just made a great connection with Jimmy Graham. And there's a tandem. They're probably the best quarter. I mean, when Gronk's healthy, you could argue Brady Gronk, but Brees, Graham, that's scary. But you always have to pick someone for Offensive Player of the Year, and I pick Jamaal Charles, Kansas City Chiefs running back. Jamaal Charles, I like him because he's all-purpose. He does multiple things. McCoy is also considered a great all-purpose back, except Jamaal Charles had a lot more receiving yards and touchdowns than McCoy did. And that's what I like about him. And compared to Manning and Brees, I would give the Offensive Player of the Year award to either of them if they were running quarterbacks, but Manning's a pocket passer and Brees is a field general. So that's why they don't win the award. And Jamaal Charles, granted, the same thing with McCoy. Well, any of these guys. If none of these guys play, none of their teams make the playoffs. That's as simple as it gets. But Jamaal Charles definitely was really valuable, as he's definitely the Chiefs Player of the Year. So, and I think without him, they don't go anywhere, and that's why he deserved Offensive Player of the Year. 2 more awards left. Now we go on to Coach of the Year. So here we go. My 4 nominees for Coach of the Year are Andy Reid, Kansas City Chiefs; Chip Kelly, Philadelphia Eagles; Ron Rivera, Carolina Panthers; and Bill Belichick, New England Patriots. Let's talk about these guys. Andy Reid. I'm Eagles fan, and Andy Reid was a longtime Eagles head coach until he went to Kansas City. He brought the Chiefs from 2-14 to 11-5 only to make the first wild card spot because the Broncos won 13-3 or 12 or 14-2, one of those. And man, did Andy Reid turn that team around, making top decisions with the executives to get Alex Smith, who was not a great quarterback. He's a good quarterback who controls the game, and when you put weapons around him, he'll do good. He also brought the defense. That defense last year is so good, but they didn't do much because they didn't have chemistry. Andy Reid brought chemistry to that defense, and that made that defense so strong in Kansas City, making them a top 5 defense. And Andy Reid hasn't been known for, well, I guess he kind of has. Early with the Eagles, he was known for his defense when he had Jeremiah Trotter and Brian Dawkins, and now he brought that same mental mindset to Kansas City. Next, Chip Kelly. Chip Kelly did almost an Andy Reid type thing, except Chip Kelly, former head coach of Oregon, and he brought just the Eagles, turned the Eagles around, basically. The Eagles, who were 4-12 last year, brought them to 10-6 in the division winner of the NFC East. And his offensive style definitely brought something new to the NFL. His offense is fast-paced, and it just keep going. In training camp and during practice, he just screams conditioning. If you're not conditioned on the Eagles, you're not good enough to play on that offense. Conditioned offensively on the Eagles, you're not going to play in that offense. And he definitely had conditioning because clearly those players were in great shape. His offense clearly worked because the Eagles were the number one. Well, second half of the season, they were the number 1 offense. Overall, they were the number 2 offense in the NFL. If they fix that defense next year, they're a top team. Next, Ron Rivera. Ron Rivera might have had one of the best turnarounds in a single season. The Panthers started off 1-4, only to go 11-5 and win the NFC South. That's pretty good. Like, really good. To turn it around immediately in the middle of the season and get your team into the playoffs, that is phenomenal. I applaud Mr. Ron Rivera, and definitely that's why he's on this list. And once again, the mastermind himself, Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick and Tom Brady might go down as the best quarterback head coach combo in NFL history. These men have been to Super Bowls, they've been to many championship games, and they've won many of divisions. Bill Belichick has done it not only this year, but almost every year. He's in talks for this award. So that's why he's back here again this year. And now my winner for Coach of the Year, Kansas City Chiefs head coach Andy Reid. Listen, the other 3 guys on this list were all great in their own ways. Especially I liked Ron Rivera and Bill Belichick for Bill Belichick just keeping the Patriots always on pace and never letting them go off, and Ron Rivera for turning the season around, and also Chip Kelly for that reason. But man, you're a good coach when you turn a team around from 12-4 to 2-14 to 11-5. That screams that the coach was clearly the problem there almost. I mean, granted, they did bring in a good quarterback then. That was what they needed. And you always need a quarterback, but there you go. And finally, the 6 candidates for NFL MVP, Most Valuable Player. So, the nominees are Peyton Manning, quarterback, Denver Broncos. Peyton Manning smashed records this year. He destroyed records. Everybody said that after he came back from his neck injury, he couldn't do it. He wouldn't be himself. He'd be only just a top 10. Instead, he's number 1. This man has done it. Granted, he has the best receiving core you could ask for in NFL. Probably not in NFL history, but definitely the best receiving core in the NFL right now. He has Eric Decker, Demaryius Thomas, Wes Welker, and for tight end, Julius Thomas. Those 4 guys will catch a lot of things. You have the hands of the hands of Wes Welker. It's actually an interesting stat. Wes Welker has the most drop passes since I think 2011. So we're not going to talk about that. But I guess it's consistent. You have one of the most consistent receivers in Wes Welker. You have Eric Decker, who has reliable hands, and he's a smart receiver. You have Demaryius Thomas, who's the number 1 on that team, who's that number 1 receiver with speed, hands, vertical ability. He's tall, he's lanky, he's what you want. But Peyton Manning this year, even though he had all those weapons, still proved why he's the best. And even before he was with the Colts, he had weapons. He just didn't do as good as he happened to do this year. The greatest year. He has like 4 years left, and towards the definitely what's considered the decline of his career. He has the best season of his career. Next, a guy making his third appearance in these awards, running back for the Philadelphia Eagles, Shawn McCoy. He's back again. He's on this list because I feel like if he's not on the team, the team doesn't go to the playoffs. Or if he's not healthy, the team doesn't go to the playoffs. He led the NFL in rushing. So, I mean, he was up there in touchdowns for a single player, so that's great. And there's not much to talk about him again because, again, we talked about him 3 times. Next up on my list is Nick Foles, Philadelphia Eagles quarterback. Nick Foles wasn't the starter at the beginning of the season. In fact, he didn't start the first 4 games. Nick Foles comes in. He has 27 touchdowns and 2 interceptions by the end of the regular season. The second best passer rating, and he ends with the second best passer rating in NFL history to Aaron Rodgers, who I think in 2011 or 2010 did that. And man, nobody, and I mean nobody, expected Nick Foles to do this. Not even myself. I thought Chip Kelly, Mr. Read option, fast tempo, fast quarterback, Michael Vick. Nick Foles comes in, pocket passer with almost no mobility, comes in, gets a fair amount of rushing yards, and he does it all. Imagine if he started those first 4 games. That's a lot more added to his stats, and granted, will he do as good next year? I mean, maybe. This was a sophomore year, so he can't have a sophomore slump. It was first year starting, though. But hey, well, technically wasn't his first year starting because he wasn't even named the starter at the beginning of the season. But eventually he came in and he did what he had to do. Next, the guy who's making another appearance on this list, New Orleans Saints quarterback Drew Brees. Again, we talked about him with Offensive Player of the Year. He came in. Well, not came in. He's always been in. He just does what he does. He gets those touchdowns. He gets those yards. Always smart. Always in control of the game. Drew Brees is Drew Brees. You can never count him out of a game. Next on this list, he's also the only man on this list who's not repeated. New England Patriots quarterback Tom Brady. Tom Brady impressed me a lot this year. Granted, his numbers weren't always where they were normally the previous however many years. This year, he proved that he is top 3 best quarterbacks in NFL history. And how did he prove that? Simple. He proved that by not having a receiving core at all. He lost Wes Welker. He lost Brandon Lloyd. He lost Gronk to injury. Excuse me. And he comes in, and he makes Julian Edelman, of all people, look like a star receiver. It goes to show that he can make anyone look good. And if it well, again, not for Tom Brady, that team doesn't make the playoffs. In fact, not for Tom Brady, they're probably last in the division with how they are overall, other than him. So, that's why he's on this list. And next, another man who's repeated. Kansas City Chiefs running back Jamaal Charles. Again, same thing, all-purpose back. Had a lot of overall touchdowns, both receiving and rushing. Had a lot of yards, both receiving and rushing. And that's why he's on this list. And now, the man who I think should win NFL MVP is Mr. Peyton Manning. This man came in and he smashed 2 huge records. The passing touchdown record held by not by Peyton Manning. Now held by him. The passing touchdown record held by Tom Brady, and the passing yards record held by Drew Brees. Broke them both. He beat Drew Brees' record by 1 yard. Then he beats Tom Brady's touchdown record by 4 touchdowns. Thanks to that helped a lot when in the first game of the year you throw 7 touchdowns against the Baltimore Ravens. So that's why Peyton Manning wins NFL MVP. This will also be, as it's clearly shown, it's been a really long video. I hope you guys watched the whole thing and watched what I had to say on the NFL award voting, basically, and who I think will win and who I think should be really nominated. Anyways, thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you guys in the next episode. Peace.